Welcome to Movie Night Spotlight. I'm your host, Dave Lindsay, and I am joined once again via Google Hangout by Liam O'Leary because he is way too far away from Massachusetts to be here in person.
Truth fact.
I mean, it would be either a very costly flight or a really long drive.
Yeah. And both of those ended up being costly, really.
It's true. It's very true. But at least, you get to see part of the United States, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, before we get into discussing this episode's main feature, we want to recap go back to an episode we had a couple weeks ago where Michele, Lev, and I discussed primarily Silver Linings Playbook amongst other things. And the topic of the movie 500 Days of Summer came up where Michele said she doesn't really want to see it because she knows that the two main characters don't end up together. So while it does technically have a happy ending, it's not the happy ending she prefers. To which Liam posted on her Facebook wall, and I quote, because I'm looking at it right now, "As I listen to this week's Movie Night Spotlight, I must say the following. Mrs. S., your reason for not watching 500 Days of Summer," and reason was in quotations, "your reason for not watching 500 Days of Summer is lame. That is all. Have a nice day. P.S. 500 Days of Summer has people dancing in it too, just so you know." So, Michele responded, "Liam, your mustache is lame." Well, actually, let me rephrase this too. I skipped part of it. It says, "Well, as I look at your profile picture, I must say the following. Liam, your mustache is lame. That is all. Have a great night." I mean, I don't know if you're looking at Liam's mustache. He's making a big grin, or a goofy face like he always do. But you're growing that thing out. It's pretty thick. It's you might get enough there to do the whole handlebars thing. I don't know if that's what you're going for.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, switch your video feed to black and white. I mean, people obviously listening to this aren't going to be able to enjoy this, but switch it to black and white.
We need to do that. Let's see. Cue the old-timey music.
I mean, you totally could be right out of, vaudeville era,
Especially with the scally.
And you get the barbershop quartet going along, the Music Man, "Good night, ladies." You totally.
Wait, let me do the profile of the fisticuffs. Let's see how this looks.
You could be from the original, 1896 or whatever, boxing fight. It was what was it, a train pulling into station, then the cockfights. I think eventually they did get to, filming boxing fights. You could be right out of that. I mean.
Oh, definitely. Old school, old-timey bare-knuckle boxing or boxing against a kangaroo or something like that.
So Liam followed up Michele's comment by saying, "The difference is you are incorrect. I, on the other hand, am not."
A statement I stand by.
But this is also personal preference. I mean, to say that one person's correct and the other person's not, it's a tough call. That's personal opinion on your part.
Not really. She said my mustache was lame. That is totally incorrect.
Personal opinion. Maybe she doesn't like mustaches. I mean, I think Levitt's got some facial hair going on right now, a little bit of beard, and she's been very vocal that she doesn't like it. I don't think Levitt, he just does what Levitt does, which is not shave apparently, but.
I don't think I've ever seen Levitt have a mustache.
I think it's a full beard. It's the full beard thing going on.
He can pull it off.
See, yeah. So anyway, to try and bring peace to the conversation, I threw out a suggestion. So I said, here's a thought. If Liam shaves, Michele has to watch the movie and record a podcast. I think that's fair.
Sounds fair to me.
And, you said dot 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 perhaps. So you're not even certain there. I mean, you're saying maybe I don't want to shave, but if I get to watch the movie,
I will preface my agreement or disagreement with this. If, because you know me, if uh, if Michelle watches it, in fact, what we can do is we can do this again with Michelle joining you there and me here, and we can discuss it from that point. And when she sees me, this will be gone.
so let me see. Let me get a fair time frame for this. So if Michelle agrees to watch 500 Days of Summer,
Yes.
when do you agree to shave? Before or after she watches it? Because I thought that like if you shave, then she has to. So you'd have to shave first based on what I suggested.
Well,
Because
again, I'll be happy to do it once I am certain that she has agreed to watch the movie. She doesn't need to have watched it yet, so long as I know that she is agreeing to watch it within the immediate future, then yes, I will shave.
okay, so the gauntlet's been thrown down, Michelle. If you're listening to this episode, Liam has said publicly now,
I have.
he's on record as saying he will shave the mustache if you watch 500 Days of Summer. Even though she knows how it ends, but I think she'd still like the entire movie. I mean, you're happy, you're sad, and at the end, you're happy. I mean, he's got a nice little wink and a smile, a smirk more at the end of the movie when he looks at the camera before the credits roll. Minor spoilers, but
It,
it's happy.
I
She's
feel like
happy. He's
Michelle is
happy.
depriving
Everyone's
herself
happy.
of a good movie.
It's definitely a good movie. All right, so the gauntlet's been thrown down, Michelle. You have to respond. Future episode, you discussing 500 Days of Summer with us after watching it with probably just me, because as we said earlier, Liam's not exactly local to join us, although he certainly would.
I certainly would.
If she agrees and does eventually watch 500 Days of Summer, Liam goes clean shaven for at least that period of time when we're watching and discussing the movie.
Yes.
All right. Hopefully we get a response soon. On to the main part of the show. We have a board here at my place for when we're doing movie nights, because we would be tossing out so many suggestions for movies, and because we're not smart, we weren't writing them down. So what was that one we referenced like 2 weeks ago that we really wanted to watch?
What was that one we were thinking of?
So eventually I was like, hey, I have a whiteboard. Let's put it up and write down these movies. One of those movies was Mulholland Drive from David Lynch, 2001, kind of cool, funky movie, and it's been up there for about 2+ years.
Yeah.
Other movies were being watched, other movies were being suggested, and people were here, weren't here. Eventually, Liam left Massachusetts, and it's pretty much been up there ever since. So after watching The Thing, Dawn of the Dead, we were like, what should we talk about next? What should we talk about next? And I was like, we have this movie on the board. I think it's time to cross it off or erase it off. So this week we're talking about Mulholland Drive, starring Naomi Watts, Justin Theroux, Dan Hidea's in there.
Yep.
Lots of cool people.
But those are the only ones that I think most people would recognize.
Most people would know. I mean, I got the IMDb page pulled up here. Let's see, that's David Lynch's page right there. 1 second, load time. The other female lead is Laura Herring. Ann Miller. I was reading the trivia, and this was Ann Miller played Coco, the landlord lady of the condo complex, I guess it would be out there. And Ann Miller, this was her last role that she appeared in. And as soon as I saw her, I'm like, holy crap, she's the dance teacher from Home Improvement when Tim and Jill try and go ballroom dancing, and Tim goes out and he's dancing with her, and she's like, spin me, and he does so, and of course, too hard, she ends up spinning out of the room and crashing, and it's home improvement. You have to have an accident, so.
Sitcom hilarity ensues.
But yeah, Robert Forster, Jackie Brown.
Yes, yeah, he's the cop.
He's a cop in Jackie Brown. And then more recently, I don't know if you were watching it, but it is on one of your favorite networks, AMC. You love The Walking Dead.
I do.
Breaking Bad, he was in the last 8 episodes here.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember seeing him.
Yeah, he was the guy. If you haven't watched the last 8 episodes, season 5, part 2, Breaking Bad.
Something like that.
Minor spoiler here. Walter White goes on the run. Saul gets in the sky to help him escape and get him over from New Mexico over to New Hampshire. That guy, Robert Forster.
I still need to get into that show. I mean, I've caught bits and pieces of it, and it looked like it was right up my alley.
Totally do.
But it's something I need to see from the beginning.
Yeah, no, you definitely have to do. You can't. You probably could jump in mid-season, but you'd definitely be a little bit lost. But definitely start from the beginning. I think I think most of it's up on Netflix. If you have Netflix, watch instantly. Might be able to find the DVDs cheap as season 5 part 2 is coming out soon. Might be able to find the seasons cheap at Best Buy or Target. But that was one that I picked up probably after season 1, right before season 2, and I was just seeing it at Best Buy, and eventually it was like $20. What the heck? Give it a shot. It looks interesting. I mean, the cover is Bryan Cranston in a shirt and underwear with a gun, and I'm like, this seems messed up, and it was. Bryan Cranston, Liam may like, is in How I Met Your Mother.
Yes. I mean, I'm aware of of who plays in Breaking Bad.
I'm just saying, did you see him the other night?
Yes, I did. I was actually going to mention that.
That was awesome. It's so cool seeing him.
I can make things very uncomfortable for you, Jack.
Right. So there's a little hint at what he's capable of now that we know he's Walter White, and it's hilarious. But anyway,
in the remake of Total Recall.
He was the bad guy.
Cohagen. That guy.
That might have to be a future episode since you are a big fan of the original Total Recall with Arnold.
The original Arnold is awesome.
Awesome is not the word I would use.
Come on. It is an action movie classic.
Hey. We're not here to discuss Total Recall. Let's do that for another one, although we probably could. No rules. But we might want to get back on track.
We're on something much more high-minded than basically the massive death killing of Total Recall.
And I'm pretty happy we don't have the full body scanners where you see people walking by and the skeletons just while it's like watching a Disney cartoon. Anyway, Mulholland Drive. Why did you put this one on the board, Liam? It's your handwriting. Eventually a little L got next to it. It's clearly your suggestion for movie night. What about Mulholland Drive made you say we should watch this movie at movie night?
Well, to be honest, our mutual friend, Mr. John Roberts, got me, and I think he got you onto it too, but he certainly got me onto this movie. He had been talking, he had told us about it before, I remember, and you'd seen it first with him, and then the two of you were telling me about this, and then you and I sat down and watched it. And of all the movies that you and I have watched together, this has got to be one of the most confusing movies, and I mean this in a good way. I mean, this isn't it's take what most would think of a regular movie that's got a beginning, middle, and end, things like that. Throw it out the window. This kind of really goes against convention, and it leaves you to me, you had to be some sort of super genius to be able to watch that movie just one time and come out and be like, okay, I know exactly what happened.
Right. And I mean, it's definitely not conventional three-act structure. Um, Although you probably could find, this is where Act 1 would end, this is where Act 2 would end. You probably could do that. Clearly, Act 3 ends when the credits roll. But
Obviously.
it's not so out of order, a la Pulp Fiction, or, you're not jumping back and forth between time like Memento, or even the flashbacks in Boondock Saints when, Willem Dafoe's being like, this is how it happened when they're committing the crime.
Although there are certainly times where it is, especially in the second half, there are definitely times where it is jumping back and forth through time. I realized that watching it this morning, there are definitely parts, and I may not have noticed it initially, but there are definitely parts where it is jumping back and forth through time. But there's no like transition. It just happens.
You're talking after they put the key in the box, right?
Yeah, once they enter the blue cube.
See, I'm not sure if they're jumping back and forth in time there, or if it's just clips of what's going on in the future. I feel like and maybe this is the open-ended aspect of the movie where it's, you decide what's happening. Because I read that, I was watching it last night, and then again, this afternoon. So they put the key in, or they have the key. They find the box after the weird, 2 a.m. show they went to, which was, I couldn't tell if it was magic or vaudeville or, just randomness, because eventually they have the guy with the trumpet who's not really playing trumpet, the guy who's kind of the host, but sure where he's going with it, and then the lady singing, but then she faints, and
it turns out that she isn't singing.
At that point, Betty finds the box in her purse. They go back and like, oh, that's where the key goes. Rita goes to grab the box. Betty's now MIA.
Gone.
The box hits the floor. Pan up, and you see Ruth, Aunt Ruth, Betty's Aunt Ruth, who's the owner of the condo they're in, at the door, and Rita's gone too. And that's where it almost does go into like something of an alternate timeline. They're in the other apartment building that they had visited before, and then you go on. I feel like that's the rest of the movie. Like, so it doesn't. I don't think it's jumping around like Pulp Fiction or going back and forth like Memento.
Well,
but you're certainly on an alternate timeline.
Oh, that's not necessarily what I was talking about. I mean, after they enter the blue cube and go into the alternate world, or the waking world, or whatever the hell it is, you see parts where who you previously knew as Betty, and I say that because to people who have watched it, you know that identities start to change.
Yes.
After they enter the blue cube, but you're seeing snippets, because it shows again what we formerly knew as Betty. We see snippets of her life with who we formerly knew as Rita.
She's now Carmille, or
Camilla.
Camilla, yeah. Camilla Rose.
Yeah,
she's Camilla Rose now.
And we see some of her relationship with Betty, who it turns out is apparently Diana Selwyn. But we see bits of their relationship before essentially where you start off once you enter the blue cube. You start off, Diana is waking up and is clearly very depressed. She's...
All right, I get you now. Okay.
Yeah, you're seeing bits and pieces of her relationship, and then it jumps back again.
Clearly, we're doing a lot of spoilers, because it does come, and then at the end, she shoots herself, and go back to when Betty and Rita visit, apartment 17B or whatever it is, and they see her dead.
Yeah.
That's where it ends. Because I got confused because it's, it picks up and you meet Justin Theroux as the director, and he's gone through all those auditions. When you first meet him, he's in that conference room where they're trying to pitch him Camilla Rose as his female lead.
Which he doesn't want.
Which he doesn't want. He ends up bashing in the dude's windshield with the golf club and then scurrying off in his Porsche like a little wuss. But I wouldn't even have the balls to smash the guy's window in the first place. So
yeah, I mean, you got to give him credit for being like, you know what, I'm not taking this. I'll let you guys know that I'm not taking this.
Right. And then the next time you meet him, is it the next time? Or one of the next times you do meet him, maybe not the next time, but skip a few scenes forward, you see him holding the auditions for the singer. You first meet the singer, they do the pan back to show that they're on the stage, the set of whatever movie he is going to be making. All right, next person. You see Camilla Rose. And then post them finding that box, and you're now in the alternate timeline, Rita is Camilla Rose, and she's hanging out with the director, and you learn what's going on between her and Naomi Watts' character, who her other name is Diane, right? Yeah.
Diana Selwyn.
Diane. Right. All right, I get you now.
Yeah, I mean, it does, flip around with time, but incidentally, even though we are essentially giving spoilers, I really don't feel like we are, because this movie is so confusing, really. We could tell you the whole thing, and you still wouldn't understand it.
So now...
So I feel like we're not necessarily, like...
Now that we've kind of
like, oh, well, this happened.
Yeah, so here's my question for you. So the opening of the movie is the kind of a mashup of the old Gap dancing commercials with a foreshadowing of the Apple iPod commercials.
Yeah, kind of.
Because it was 2001, so I think the first iPod was released in 2002, so it was definitely, Mulholland Drive was definitely before the commercials with the silhouettes. Yeah. So yeah, the people dancing out like Gap commercials with the iPod commercial, and then it transitions from that to someone falling onto a bed. Before you see unknown person who would eventually become Rita, but because she names herself Rita after seemingly she loses her memory.
Yep.
Ends up at Betty's aunt's place, and when asked her name, doesn't say anything, but grabs Rita off of the poster from Rita Hayworth.
Yep.
So before you get to the limo, or whatever car she's in, you see someone kind of falling onto a bed. Do you think that opening Gap iPod commercial mashup is like what Diane saw in her head before she died? Like she shoots herself, and is that like what she's seeing before she dies?
I wasn't sure.
They also do another sort of flash too at the end where you're seeing her and Camilla, or her and Rita, whichever personalities you want them to be, also before credits roll. That could be her, flash before her eyes, before she dies moment, or is the opening that flash before her eyes kind of thing?
It could be, but what I did gather from it, something I may have missed the first two times I watched this, something I may have forgotten about, as the movie was progressing, but something I made sure to, I definitely remembered this time around, was near the end when Diana is talking to the director's mother, and they're at this big feast that he's hosting, this big party that he's hosting to announce his engagement to Camilla. And his mother asks Diana, "Oh, well, how do you know Camilla?" And she goes on to explain how she met them at an audition, which in the original timeline, I guess you want to call it, it is not Camilla/Rita, but it is Diana/Betty who is at that audition.
Right.
And she explains that, I came here from Canada after winning a jitterbug contest. And it's like, that's the point of the people dancing. If well, let's take your theory that it's the last thing she sees before she dies. It's
Okay,
her remembering what brought her to California in the first place. It was the jitterbug contest.
gotcha.
Uh, and to more fully answer your question from earlier, um, uh, when I initially put this on the board, my intent, although obviously it turned out when things weren't going to be able to pan out this way just because of scheduling conflicts, but my hope was that our other friends, including one that has been on the show, Dennis Murphy, that Dennis, Brendan, Nicole, that they would all get to see this, so that I could get their input on this movie, because I don't think any of them have ever seen it.
Right. Well, I'll still try and get them to watch it. I'm trying to get in touch with them now that Dennis and Nicole are back in at least Massachusetts, not necessarily this part of the state, but they're in the state again.
Yes,
Definitely trying to get them on the show, so maybe we get a chance to share the movie with them as well.
But I mean, generally, the main point of me putting the movie up on the board was so that this could happen, so that we could sit here and really do our best to kind of wrap our heads around this movie, because this is the kind of movie that you have to try to wrap your head around. If you think you're just going to get it all in one sitting,
Right.
you're grossly underestimating this movie.
Yeah, it's not 500 Days of Summer where, I mean, that's another movie that jumps around in time, but you press play, movie ends, you put all the puzzle pieces where they belong, and you know what happens.
Oh, definitely.
Mulholland Drive is one where, we're putting the puzzle pieces together, but it's taken 3 or 4 attempts to do so. And I think it is, after reading some of the trivia facts on IMDb about it, I think it's purposely left a little open-ended because it was originally intended to be a TV show. So they didn't want, the movie that we saw is basically what started out as the pilot episode. ABC and David Lynch have a little bit of a disagreement. ABC drops the show. He takes it and kind of finishes it off and makes it into a David Lynch-esque coherent movie, and releases it. And because I was noticing that, I'm like, wow, some of this dialogue feels a little TV-esque more so than movie-like. Even some of the shots of it, like some of how the images look more TV than movie. The soundtrack definitely sounds like 1980s, which you must have loved. Definitely sounds like it would have fit right in with the soundtracks from the 80s, which makes sense. I mean, he was doing Twin Peaks and stuff back then, so.
Yeah.
But I definitely kind of, once I read that and I applied he was intended this to be originally for like a TV pilot or like a TV movie that would segue into a series. I was kind of like, okay, that makes sense. But so because he was intentionally going to leave it open-ended when they were doing the TV stuff so that it could go into a series. And I'm wondering if is he still doing that just because that was the original intent, to leave it so you didn't know exactly what went on, or was he just still having a little bit of fun with you now that it is a feature?
I think just by the nature, of what kind of style he was going for, part of me, I think that's just him kind of, I mean, the movie's supposed to be surrealist. I think it's him just being like, you know what? It's not supposed to make sense. Don't worry about it.
Well, I think it does make sense eventually. It's just like I said, you're not going to necessarily fully comprehend it or necessarily have all the puzzle pieces in place after the first viewing. Because as you and I are talking, there's little details that we're just picking up. Like I was watching it. This is my 3rd or 4th, maybe even 5th time watching it because I kind of watched it 2 times over the past couple of days. the first time you go to the diner, you eventually see Diane in the diner with the guy who is the kind of the gunman. When you see him in the office and he shoots the guy getting the black book, then he ends up shooting the lady in the other office, and then he ends up shooting the janitor. So Diane is at the diner.
Incidentally, that guy's got to be the worst hitman ever.
Yeah. Well,
the guy was very, very incompetent.
Getting the smoke detector to set off because he shoots the vacuum and sets off, it's probably not the best move when you're trying to escape.
Shooting someone in the other room when you're trying to put the other guy's fingerprints on the gun that you just shot him with doesn't help you.
Right. But at least the window and fire escape was right there for somewhat of a clean escape. So the diner you see twice. When you first see it, you have the guy, I forget his name, but I've seen him also in Mad Men. Recently saw him in Idiocracy. And then I know him best from the end of Red State. He's one of the other agents that John Goodman's telling the story to. So he seems to be creeping up here and there. When he's talking to this guy about his dream, they walk outside and turn the corner, and he sees this weird mystery man/demon type thing.
I just call him the troll. I mean, that's how we described him when I first watched it with you. We go like, what is he, a troll, a goblin? What the hell is he? I didn't understand anything about him.
He is kind of a mashup between like homeless guy and an orc from Lord of the Rings.
Part of me feels like he's supposed to be like the keeper of the cube or something.
He might be, because you see him pop up a little bit more at the end of the movie. Diane shoots herself, and you see his figure kind of in an overlay, where you're like, oh, what the heck is going on here now? I wonder if that's one of the storylines that they would have taken further had it actually become a TV series.
Yeah, I wonder would he have been like the... I mean, let's say for argument's sake that the series is kind of... like each individual episode is kind of like separate unto themselves. Would he be kind of like the thing that holds it all together? Like, yeah, this is how this person got sucked into the cube or something.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely weird.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
I mean, it's a good movie. I definitely enjoy it, but it's definitely not one that I feel like I can watch on a regular basis. I mean, obviously trying to watch a lot of new stuff too, so you shouldn't constantly be popping it in, but it's one that I feel like if I just return to it every once in a while, it's gonna one, stay fresh, and one, I'm just gonna end up noticing something new every time. Maybe not, I don't always necessarily notice something new when I watch Pulp Fiction, but Pulp Fiction's similar in that regard, where you're like, oh, that connects to this part and that connects to that part. I still want to watch Pulp Fiction to see, because of the myth, the rumor that all the clocks are stuck at 420. I still want to watch Pulp Fiction just to pay close attention to that. But I think it's similar to, Mulholland Drive is similar to that, where it's like every time you watch it, you're gonna find another piece of the puzzle. You're gonna find another thing that makes it make more sense. Although I don't know if that was David Lynch's full intent with the movie, because it started off as this TV pilot. Maybe, I think he just eventually took that idea and fleshed it out to be a coherent movie.
I don't know, but I'll agree with you that there's definitely parts of it that the more times you watch it, again, whether that was his intent or not, I don't know, but there are definitely more parts that either are very relatively minor, in the first half that you may even completely forget. I know I certainly forgot a few of them. That once they come back around at the end, certainly this time, again, the first few times I may have forgotten them, I may have overlooked them completely, but there are definitely things that I'm seeing at this time that I start to recognize now. Like the waitress who in the second half is Betty.
Yep, I saw her name tag. Yep.
I realized that she is the woman who looks. She looks like she's like a heroin addict that the hitman meets in the diner in the first half.
Right.
I hadn't realized that the two crazy old people who chase Diane at the end of the second half that
That
kind of.
was like the scariest part. Like that's when it becomes somewhat of a horror movie. Because I'm watching it this afternoon and I'm like, that's probably scarier than Mike Myers coming at you with a knife. Like these two overly happy old people running down the hall at me. I'm like, that's terrifying. And then when they get on the, oh my gosh, it was unnerving watching it today. I'm just like,
It kind of is. What's weird, and this to me is where you really kind of. I mean, part of me kind of feels like it's a little bit creepy all the way through. And you listen to the music. The music is very sinister.
it's very ominous.
Even the part where they first go to Diane Someone's house in the first half, you're in an environment that's very bright, very, it's middle of the day, blah, 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 very bright, nice and green and lush. But the music makes that whole area seem very sinister.
Hmm.
In fact, I commented to my brother as I'm watching, it's like, it's not very often that you find, an area in daylight so sinister. It's weird. But
Right.
with the old people, you see little micro versions of them sneak under the door, and before you know it, they're full size again. And there's like, ah!
I thought I was
Uh,
watching Mulholland Drive, not Willy Wonka.
but that was one of those things that initially I didn't recognize them. It isn't
Yeah.
until this time around that I realized, wait a minute, that's the old lady and the guy who I'm assuming is her husband that
Yeah, 'cause you
that
see him
Betty was talking
randomly.
to when she got off the plane in the first half.
Yeah, you saw that, and then they hop in the cab, and I was like watching it this time, and you randomly see that one shot of the old people in the fancy car, limo-esque type car. I don't know if it
Yeah, I
actually,
noticed that too.
but you have no idea why. So I was like, was that car meant for Betty, and she just didn't get in it, and they were the lucky people to be there? Or like, what's the deal with that? And I think that's one of those other things that might have been explained a bit more had a TV show gone into it, or and then he just brought him back. I don't know what exactly the intent was there. But we covered a lot of the movie, and I have just one more thing to ask you.
Okay.
The two
I feel
times
I feel like we could do this for like 2 hours,
we
really.
probably could. You know, I recently did a commentary track for Elf. Probably should have done that for Mulholland Drive, but we probably have to watch it like 10 more times before we could even conceive having a commentary track. And then, because we'd probably be like stuck like, wait, what's going on again? Like trying to, we
You're
have
like,
to
what
know
just
the movie
happened?
like the back of our hand. Elf is a bit easier than Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, definitely.
um, you have the two parallel scenes that take place on the street Mulholland Drive. When you first meet Rita, and when Diane is driving unknowingly to the party, the engagement party. At one point, when you're with Rita at the beginning, the guys stop and she's like, "We're not supposed to stop here." They turn and point a gun. 20 somethings, I'm assuming, driving around fast, probably drunk out of their mind, cause a car accident and get the ball in motion for that portion of the movie. When the car stops with Diane, she says the same thing. "We're not supposed to be here." They're like, "It's a surprise." Door opens. Out walks Camilla, walks her to the engagement party. How do you interpret that and how they line up in regards to the overall story of the movie?
Uh, First, I'll say that yes, that is one thing that I did notice this time around, which I may have forgotten, is just how much those two scenes parallel one another. Um, but I, I, re- I honestly don't know. I don't know if uh, as I'm trying to wrap my head around where each character fits into the storyline as it seems to cycle through people going into the blue cube and coming back out again. Uh, Part of me wonders is this what would have happened to Rita? We don't know what Rita's name is, incidentally. Um, but was this what would have happened to Rita? Had the accident not happened? would she have been
That's
shot, or would have been like, oh, surprise,
that's
something
kind of a
like that?
really sick way to give someone a surprise is point a gun at them and like it's not even it's a pretty realistic looking gun. I don't think the little bang sign's gonna be coming out of it, you know.
But I mean, I don't know. Is there like, is it like everyone's turn to go into the cube, and when Rita goes into the cube, it's different than when Betty does? There's so many questions that I have. Like, you see the girl who had been Camilla Rhodes in the first half, you see her at the end at the party, and I'm
Yep.
sitting there wondering, again, is this like some sort of weird metaphysical game of musical chairs where, okay, this person has entered the cube, everyone move down a seat, you become this person becomes this person becomes that person, and this
But,
person's life
but some
turns to
people stay
shit.
the same. Like Coco's still Coco. You know, the
Yeah,
director's still the
that's the other
director.
weird thing. The cowboy's still the cowboy. The director is still the director. Coco is still Coco. The hitman is the same, but the girl who used to be Camilla Rhodes is not. Rita is now Camilla Rhodes. Um, Diane is still the girl who comes from Canada. Her aunt is still the same person, but she's not Betty. She's Diane.
Right.
Betty is now the waitress at the diner, and the girl who now becomes the waitress, for all I know, she could have be the original Diane Selwyn,
Right. She could have been, you know, she was definitely you couldn't make out who she was when you see her on the bed that first time. Like,
and she isn't, and she's never named.
right.
So I mean, I find myself wondering, again, is this like some sort of, you know, welcome to your own personal hell when you get sucked into the cube, and it's like, okay, well, guess what? What you were, someone else gets to have that life, and you get to have basically shit. Your life is gonna suck. Welcome to the cube. Enjoy. Um,
I hope I never get sucked into the cube then, because
yeah, that'd be terrible. It's like Hellraiser. Um, one other thing, just a commentary on the whole party. As I'm watching that, and they keep showing shots of Diana, I think back to Brennan and Nicole going facial scrub, because literally Camilla's just like rubbing everything in her face. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
guess what? I'm marrying the director, and you know what? I'm still seeing the girl who used to be Camilla Rhodes on the side, but you know what? You are totally on the outs. Ha
right.
ha ha.
It was definitely. I mean, no wonder Diane had some emotional problems because that must be scarring. You know, your best friend who got the part in the movie you wanted or the whatever it was TV show movie got the part you wanted, you were turned down, and then just keeps having all this success. Well, and she's helping you get these bit roles, but you're not the lead in anything. You're just she is. And it's just, and then like you brought up everything at the party. It's just one big in your face the entire time they hang out, and no wonder there's that tension between them now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that they're friends; they're lovers on top of that. But then, you know, and this is where you see one of the flashbacks in the second half. You see Diana remembering when Camilla essentially first met the director,
Hmm.
and then it comes back to the present again. There's no real transition; it's just kind of one and then the other. But you see, she's watching her best friend slash lover start falling in love with the dude, who then she starts growing noticeably more distant from her. Uh, eventually, she kind of doesn't say, but kind of implies, yeah, we're kind of breaking up. Which Diana just says, okay, if you're gonna break up, then fine, screw it, we're broken up, the end. But it's like it just never ends. It's the beatdown just keeps coming. She gets invited, she gets called up to meet her at Mulholland Drive. Uh, and it looks like Camilla's like, okay, you know what? Things are kind of bad between us. I just want to kind of extend the olive branch. Takes her up to this party. Oh, this great party. And who's there? The director. And she's kind of like, oh, this is what you brought me here for. She then gets told that, oh, we're getting married, and it's just really. they're sitting there giggling and getting all lovey-dovey before
Yeah,
they make the
they
effort,
didn't
and
even
you can
finish
see
the
her just like,
sentence before they chop to the next scene. They're like, you know, you tell it, you tell it. You know.
yeah, and you can see Diana's just seething, just watching this because the whole time it's just like it's like in Moneyball where Brad Pitt's like, would you rather be shot in the head or get shot 5 times in the chest and bleed out? She's like, just say the damn thing. Just watching you, kind of giggling. You tell it. No, you tell it. You tell. It's just torturing me. And then she starts kind of. You see her kissing the girl who used to be Camilla Rhodes. So just on top of everything else, it's not like, oh well, it turns out I'm really into guys. It's like, no, I'm into this guy and girls, just not you. I mean that whole thing, it it's just like a gang beating. Just everything just falls on her all at once.
Well, I figured out while watching it this time if exactly how none of this would have happened.
Okay.
If they had just followed a rule discussed in How I Met Your Mother. The episode where Barney and Lily and Marshall are trying to tell Ted nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
Yes. Brilliant.
At 2 a.m., that's when Rita starts silencio, they're sleeping, and says they should go out. And Betty's like, but it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, let's just. And she's like, no, we have to go out. If they stayed home, they might have lived happily ever after.
Yep. Rita wouldn't remember anything, but she's like, you know what? I got this new life. Whatever. Who cares? And Betty's life would have been fine.
Yep.
But then that happens, and you got the cube, and blah 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 blah. But there's just as I think about this, as I watch this movie, and again, I'm inclined to say, because I feel like, at least so far as I've read, David Lynch is considered like a modern practitioner of this. Is this idea of surrealism, and this is part of the reason why I feel like it's somewhat intentionally confusing. Because the whole notion of surrealism is the idea of taking things from the subconscious, essentially taking things that we see in dreams and trying to apply it into the waking world. And it's very much intentionally incongruous. It's essentially intentionally not making sense. And I feel like that's why you get this kind of skewed timeline where everything kind of it's kind of on the same timeline, but it's like certain people in the timeline aren't the same. Again, the director's the same, the cowboy's the same, Coco's the same, the hitman's the same, the guy who's afraid of the troll is the same, but other people, they have different lives in these different realities, and it's very confusing and weird.
Right.
Incidentally, did you notice that the guy who ran the sketchy motel that the director's hiding out in is also the guy who is the host of Club Silencio?
I didn't notice that.
I didn't the first few times I've watched it, but I noticed that this time it's like, wait a minute, that's the guy from the motel. There's no way this is a coincidence. Well, there's some weird connection between. I feel like there's kind of this weird connection between him at the hotel and him having something to do with the club, and to some degree, the cube.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I mean, I think it's very easy to miss those subtle things just because, almost from the get-go, like as soon as the gun's pointed at Rita in the car, and then the accident happens, and the events of the movie unfold, there's that sense of paranoia that carries on throughout the rest of the movie.
Yes.
That you, the viewer, can't help feel yourself, because you're just like, what's around the corner? Like every corner, like what's something gonna happen? And then you see Rita every time she sees a car or like a guy in a suit.
Yep.
He just assumes it's one of the guys trying to get her. Like when they first visit the other condo where they go to condo 12, and then like, no, you gotta go to 17. She moved down to 17. Before they get to there, they're like looking, right, is it safe to walk by? And they see a guy in a suit. and then they see a lady with a suitcase come out, and he's helping her get in the car. And like, oh, he's a
Which,
nice guy.
incidentally, I'm pretty sure that the girl with the guy in the suit is Camilla Rhodes.
Yeah.
So the whole thing all intertwines like that, and again, you're right. There's definitely a feeling of paranoia because you're seeing in fact, there's a car hanging out in front of that apartment complex where Diana Selwyn lives, and you read about it like shit, and then ducking down and they're like making sure that the guys didn't see them in the cab. Tell the cab to go, pull around the back so that they don't see them step out. And there's and you see it again even with people who are the same in the different realities. The director, for example, when he starts saying it's like, no, I'm not going to, I'm not casting this one. I'm not letting you guys tell me who to cast and whatnot. Next thing you know, all of a sudden, the guy from the motel's like, I'm sorry, sir, but I just got a call from your bank, and they said that your credit's no good. He's like, but I pay cash. He's like, I know, but they called me and said your credit's no good. And the director's thinking like, shit, I got to fix this. But then the guy running the hotel kind of lays it down for him. He's like, sir, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but whoever these people are, they know where you are. And there's definitely this feeling that there is that somebody is out there and they don't necessarily have benevolent intent.
Yeah, right. I mean, paranoia is something I think is a common theme in David Lynch movies. I mean, I haven't seen most of his, but like, and I don't know if it's necessarily in his in Dune, which I should see. If anything, it's one of the posters in Chuck Bartowski's bedroom, next to Tron. The movie is upstairs. I just have to watch it. Even if it's just to watch David Bowie. But I don't know if you've ever seen Blue Velvet.
I have.
That also, you're, beyond Dennis Hopper as the bad guy, like that sense of, paranoia and danger for the romance he's having. It's just, I think that's a common theme in David Lynch. I mean, I have to see Lost Highway and Inland Empire and probably a bunch of others. I've never seen any of the Twin Peaks stuff, but based on those couple, I definitely think that's one of the elements of a movie he likes to bring in is just that, making things just feel uneasy enough where you're uncomfortable watching it yourself. Like not just the fact that the character is uncomfortable, but you, the viewer, are also just not. You're suspicious of everything that's going on around you. And I think that's what he's aiming for.
And again, you definitely see. I feel like you see that intent with certainly in the first half, and then again, I think near the end, with the crazy old people and all that stuff. I feel like you see that in the score. You're hearing certainly as you go through the first half, especially at the very beginning, and again when they go to the that condo complex or whatever the hell it is. Again, I mentioned before the very sinister, ominous music, where again you're in broad daylight. There's nothing desolate at all really about the outside of that place, but it just the sound the score makes it just very very sinister, like something like in this otherwise peaceful setting there's something unsettling here.
Yeah, definitely. I get that too. In addition to it sounding like it's out of a 1980s melodrama.
Also, I don't know if this was intentional or maybe it's just me applying some sort of color theory or what have you, but I noticed just how and I feel like you definitely see it in the second half where Betty is now Diana, but you go into that little house, that apartment, whatever you want to call it, and it's very bleak. Even when she's got the sun coming in, the whole house, the inside was all gray, like a bleak, dark gray. and it's a very kind of suffocating uh, atmosphere, I guess. You see when Diana is clearly depressed about her breakup with Camilla, just the whole house, especially as she's got the curtains shut and everything, it just looks very depressing and bleak and crushing. I guess is the term I'm looking at.
But they always try and, especially in some of those scenes, they always kind of made a point to show the blue key.
Yes, even if the key didn't look the same.
Right. So I'm kind of wondering, is that key now? It goes from that little triangle thing that goes into the box, and then later on, it's a standard house key, but it's blue. Is there now a door that's a gateway to something else? Like,
Yeah, it
where's the
raises the
next rabbit
question.
hole?
And I mean, to me, I feel like how can I say it? But I feel like definitely the color, the color is definitely indicative of something. If one is to assume that the troll is some like guardian of the cube, one has to wonder if any that the blue keys that you're getting there's some sort of evil attached to it. And when you think about it, why does Diana get the blue house key? Because she's ordered a hit on Camilla, which he had said, when the job is done, you'll get a blue key. You'll get this key. And to me, I feel like that the whole thing is indicative of some sort of evil. I mean, think about it. Rita has it in that bag full of money,
Right.
which you see Diana uses into the same bag of money to pay off the hitman.
Yep.
So one has to wonder, did Rita steal this money and this is the key? It's like, well, you've done something evil. This is the key. You do something evil, you get one of these. And it's kind of like some means of
Initiation or
entering you into hell or something. This is kind of like the doorway into hell. This is the key to it. If you do something, you get one of these, you've got a passage to hell. And Betty was kind of the, I don't know, maybe, I don't even know how to describe it. Maybe Betty was kind of the unexpected victim of kind of getting sucked in to hell instead. There's all sorts of crazy things you can go with this.
Definitely. But clearly, we both enjoyed it. I'm assuming you're going to say just like I'm going to say. If you haven't seen Mulholland Drive, definitely check it out.
Absolutely.
Definitely worth a watch. It's going to throw you curveballs that you're probably not expecting. Even if you've listened to this episode and haven't seen it yet, you're still going to get lost in the story, and it's a lot of fun to do just that.
I would guarantee that. But even having seen this, you watch that movie, you're still not going to make any sense of it. It's still going to throw you stuff. You're like, wait, what?
I mean, like I said, just small things. Like I was saying, like this is fourth or fifth time watching the movie, and I'm like, how do I not remember this scene? Like, how do I not remember this clip? And it's just because like how I remember it, I'm always remembering the next part. And like,
yeah.
And I'm just like, so, and like again, it's been a little while since I watched it, so it's just fun that you're watching this movie for whatever number time it is, and it still feels fresh, which is awesome. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap up this episode of Movie Night Spotlight. I'm Dave Lindsay.
I'm Liam O'Leary.
And remember, nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
No, nothing. Bad idea.